Hey there guys, this is part 2 of the underwater combat in Guild Wars 2. Welcome back guys. If you missed part 1 of this video, be sure to check it out. We was covering quite a few topics. We covered the underwater cities and the vendors and the dynamic events and how they sort of play into each other. We covered the Z-axis, like the fact that you can get attacked from all around you and how hard that may be underwater in groups. We talked about some aspects of the skill bars and maybe the fact that maybe certain weapons, like certain legendary weapons you can get, might be able to change the skill bars. And we covered a little bit of the depth underwater and how that could be maybe a difficulty whilst underwater than it could be on land, I suppose. So yeah, be sure to check that out. I'll probably put a link right now in this video to part 1, so be sure to watch that before you watch this part. So let's jump straight into this video. As you can see, we have carried on from exploring the underwater area, I suppose, outside of Lion Arch. This area is around level 28 to 29. Later on in the video he swims up to a sort of piratey area, and those sort of mobs are about 30, 31, like that's the sort of level range we're talking about. And as you can see in this video, we are following a Necromancer. The Necromancer is quite an interesting one. The class itself prides itself basically of sort of reaping life out of sort of lost souls, I suppose. It's sort of the sort of dark class of Guild Wars 2, and I suppose its special ability is that it sort of gains a life force when enemies die around them. This ability sort of grows and grows and grows, and then eventually they could get into the Death Shroud. You've seen him do it a couple of times in this video. I think he's done it once already in part 1. And basically this gives him another health bar, making obviously the class very, very durable. There are a different set of skills when he's in this sort of form, and those skills can be used to heal, they can be used to buff, and obviously they can use to be attack as well. But this makes Necromancer a very, very good support class, very durable, and as a caster as well. This all ties into one very, very strong class, and I could really see this Necromancer class becoming a very, very strong role in Guild Wars 2 in parties and in dynamic events. It's one of those classes where if you can go into a dungeon, you would want a Necromancer with you, simply because of the damage output and because of the sort of buffing and healing spells that you'll be able to offer. As for underwater combat with the Necromancer, we see here that although the spells look amazing underwater by the Necromancer, the sort of tint on the sort of green magic he's got darkens a bit because it's underwater. It flows a bit better and it looks amazing, but we don't really see, well in this video anyway, we don't really see any specific underwater skills. As you know, the engineer can fire a net to sort of catch something in its place underwater. The elementalist can like boil the water around their enemy. I'm sure the Necromancer has something that is direct for underwater combat, simply because when you're loading out a skill bar for underwater, you know, it's obvious there's going to be something there, but in this video I don't really see anything visually as obvious. Also, Necromancer is known for sort of summoning minions, I suppose, to help him out in combat, and although on land we see this quite a lot in all these combat videos and in a dungeon video, the 8-minute dungeon video that we saw quite a lot of summoned Necromancer abilities. They aren't really displayed underwater, but I can imagine there being some, since the Necromancer is sort of the summoner of the undead, I suppose. So that's only led to speculation of what, you know, sort of creatures will be summoned underwater, if any. But however, I really do think that Necromancer will be an extremely fun class to play. The underwater spells look absolutely incredible. We see a few big spells in this one, and this video you'll probably see them a bit later on, I think. And it just looks amazing, and the Death Shroud ability underwater looks even better than it does on land. They have done it so well, how they've sort of transitioned your character from going on land to underwater, and it feels like completely new, and it's just an extremely good experience. This brings me on to the underwater environment in general, really, and how important is it really going to be in the game, because at the moment the sort of game's pre-release, we're all excited about every single aspect possible because we know nothing really about the game unless they bring out some content like this, and as soon as they do we all sort of jump on it and find it absolutely amazing. But it's one of those things where when you get the game, everything's available to you, so all the sort of fun things are picked out by the community and people, you know, indulge themselves in certain aspects of the game that they find really interesting, and generally do the content that's the most rewarding over and over again until they can develop their character to be the best it can be. Although we know that the underwater content is applicable in order of rewards and content, so you will have to go there in order to, you know, build your character to its fullest. I'm sure there'll be achievements down there, you know, all these things. But is the content enough to sustain a large amount of people underwater involving themselves in the dynamic events, populating the cities? Are there going to be enough people interested in being underwater to keep this active? Because as we know, dynamic events scale up, and I'm sure they're the best when, you know, they have, I don't know, about 40 plus people involved. So, you know, the people who really enjoy dynamic events underwater, or just enjoy underwater in general, are they just going to be under there, you know, 24/7 and it'd be really dead? Or are they going to be under there and it's going to be really buzzing, there's going to be loads of people around? This is a big question really, because I know Guild Wars 2, the developers of the game, really are trying to push the underwater content, and they're sort of saying, you know, it's amazing, no one sort of broadened underwater this much before. You know, there's not cities underwater in other games, there's not dynamic events underwater in other games, you know, there's not as much to them. There might be something here and there, there might be, you know, an area or a zone with underwater, but as we know in Guild Wars 2, wherever there's a lake, wherever there's an ocean, I'm guessing that we'll obviously be able to just swim under, and there'll be a whole new aspect of the game. But will players stick to underwater, or will they stick to land, or will it just be 50-50? Because it really depends on how well people take to, I don't know, just being underwater. How they, you know, do they find it easy to do the combat? Do they find it easy to work with other people because of all the different layers? And how organised is it? Because we all know that when you get into a group with random people who you're not on, you know, vent to, or you're not talking to, and you just type into them, it's very hard to organise. So will this be a lot harder underwater than it is on land? And how well will underwater really be taken once the game is released? Because I'm sure in like the first month of the game, say, there's going to be a lot of people underwater exploring, you know, getting really into the game. But I'm talking about as the game progresses, how many people are still going to be interested in the underwater content. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, and I really think it depends on the dynamic events and what the cities have to offer, because we all know if the city has major vendors and, you know, a major auction house or something along those lines, then people will stay in that city underwater or not. So if underwater has amazing dynamic events that, you know, a load of guilds want to get together and sort of say, we're going underwater to trigger off this dynamic event, or, you know, we've heard this event's happening, we need to scale it up underwater. I think that if this happens, then underwater will be explored a lot more, and to be honest, I think that's how it's going to go down. I do think that the underwater has been worked on so hard by ArenaNet that what's under there is amazing, and the dynamic events, the cities, everything's just going to be too good not to keep intact to it and to just stay on land. The thing that's like confusing really is the fact that maybe on land it's going to be so good that it sort of outplays the underwater content, because in all other MMOs we used to land, we used to being on land, we used to fighting on land, you know, the mechanics in a boss fight, for example, on land would be a lot different to in water. So it's something that we're used to, and, you know, players generally sort of are more attracted to what they're used to because they're going to find it easier, they're going to find it more appealing, I suppose, than underwater. But either way, I'm sure that the underwater combat and the underwater events and what have you would still be populated enough so everyone can have fun, basically. But I'm going to have to draw this video to a close now because the video is wrapping up. Thanks for watching if you made it this far, and I'd appreciate some feedback, because these are my first few videos, so I need to know how to improve, basically. Over my next couple of videos I'm going to be trying to cover some of the Comic Con 2011, because we know Guild Wars are at the Comic Con event, and I'll putting out some more content. I think there's more underwater content that's been displayed, as well as obviously content on land and different things. I'm not sure if there's going to be announcements at Comic Con this year, but there are a couple more events coming up that they might announce the next class, maybe, who knows. But yeah, they're going to be the videos that I'm going to be showing next, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want to see more, or if not, then thanks for watching anyway, and I'll see you guys next time.